I think that, while we're in classes with the guys most of the time during the week, one of the things we're able to do here is we're actually able to interact with them. And well, once you get to meet somebody in person, talk with them in person, the communication bandwidth increases. So this has been great. The people that I've met that are also trading, that I'm also in the Rebel Pit with, and we are exchanging text messages back and forth, the camaraderie is just excellent. So I recommend anytime they have an in-person event, you got to come and attend.
Join us this December in Miami, Florida for Market Rebellion Live.
Bang! Oh, Pete's not a rebel. I like it.
I got to get something. I mean, it's not a clapper, but I got to compete a little bit there.
I can send you a clapper.
I don't need a clapper.
Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, folks. Pete Najarian and I host this show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursday. Just take a day off on Friday. Jared is our producer, and we thank all of you for joining us. So apparently, Pete, they're here, and we're growing by a little over 1,000 new subscribers a week, up over 34,400 now, because people are tired of just macro. Maybe.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be? Good God. I mean, how many guys can sit there on TV and go, "Oh, you know what it is today"? Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
You know what it is? It's they're buying today. That's what they're doing. They're buying.
It's a bunch of wind socks, John. They're all just flopping in the wind and going wherever direction is, and that's usually the wrong direction, by the way. I heard a lot of sellers the other day, and all of a sudden, oh!
Yep. Well, we'll give you that 1 minute macro right now, folks. All right, Jared, start the clock. 1 minute macro. All you really need to focus on isn't FTX, isn't Bitcoin. That's only $1 trillion total in that market. It's the pimple on the butt of an elephant, folks. But you do need to focus on the idea that the Fed is paying attention to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and it actually eased a bit more than they expected. And that's why we have a 700-point rally, right, Pete?
Yeah, and this has been absolutely phenomenal, John, because before that number came out, you're looking at the markets, not a whole lot going on. We're down 650 yesterday on the Dow. Pow, up 800. Are you kidding me? I mean, an immediate reaction. But I'll also say, John, CPI is definitely one. The other side of that, the dollar. And I'm telling you right now, the dollar a week ago was 113. Today it's in the 108s. That alone tells you exactly what you need to know.
Yep, that's your macro, folks. That's all you needed to know. Consumer prices up just 0.4%. So it's still not falling. It's just not going up as fast as it was before. Yeah. All right, let's get started with our take on these stocks, Pete. Amazon, what a move. I mean, it was the first U.S. company to ever shed $1 trillion in market cap. Ouch. And at one time today, Pete, it was up as much as $118 billion in one day. Now, I know you've got $1 trillion on the one side and $118 billion on the other, but that's a big move in just one day.
Yeah, and John, it's interesting because I think what's happening, a little bit of what's happening at least, is if it's been slammed and absolutely just hit to the downside in an amazing way, hitting 52-week lows every single day, those seem to be the big cap names that are absolutely ripping today, whether it's 10%, 11%, 12%. Take a look at Amazon. I'd even throw out a name like Google. Did anything change overnight about Amazon? Really not a whole lot. I mean, this is obviously a lot of folks that are dipping their toe in the water saying, you know what? This thing's been slammed pretty hard. Maybe today is the day to take a shot on it. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I don't know that that's the greatest plan in the world, especially from a long term, John. But in the short term, it could get interesting, especially with Veterans Day tomorrow and the bond markets closed. That usually means a little bit more of a run as we get close to the end of the week.
Yep, you're right, Pete. And the idea also, I'd say that They, just like Meta yesterday, you and I had pounded the table saying, hey, sooner or later, Zuckerberg's going to get the idea that maybe he's a little too far ahead of the curve as far as spending for the metaverse. Well, same thing in Amazon. All Bezos ever had to do when he was running the company was cut back on CapEx, and you had a zoom out of the stock. Well, guess what they're talking about today, Pete? Perhaps cutting back on some spending over there. All right, let's hit the second topic here, Pete, that we're trading, and that one is RingCentral. I think almost everybody in America knows what this company does, because the Ring doorbell has just been phenomenal, off the charts success. And it basically is just a camera integrated into your Wi-Fi or hardwired into your system that lets you see from anywhere in the world who's at your front door. Did somebody steal your package? And basically it's not just when they ring the doorbell, but it certainly can create that secure feeling. And a lot of people want that. So they went out and bought this product. They came out, Pete, with earnings and just blew by estimates, and that stock jumping to the upside today.
John, they also did something else that you just talked about. When we talk about a lot of these companies, they dropped about 10% of their staff. And that seems to be a trigger for people to say, all right, I'm a little bit more bullish than I was until I heard that. But when you look at their earnings, yeah, they absolutely crushed it, John. They even crushed it versus a year ago. They've been very, very consistent about their earnings and some of the reports that they've had. Very positive. They've been beating pretty consistently. They had a record quarter for margins. So I think that they're figuring out more and more about what they've got to do. But let's not forget, before we get too excited about Ring, it was down 83% year to date. So another great example of, hey, you know what? What's been slammed the most? I'm going to grab some of that. This is definitely one of those names in that category.
Absolutely. I mean, this was $290 a share at the highs, folks. It bottomed at 28. So that gives you an idea of some of the pain people felt that held on to this one and didn't hit the exits when they had their chance. All right, Pete, what about this one? It's called Digital Turbine. Its symbol is APPS, APPS. And they came out with earnings that were slightly above estimates. But this is another one of those stocks that people were just slam dancing on, Pete. And then, like you said, they came in buying big cap stocks. Well, they also came in buying stocks like apps.
Yeah, and the move, John, is just absolutely pretty close to outrageous, I would say. They've been pretty consistent with their earnings. That's great. They beat on their earnings. They didn't crush the earnings, John, but they beat on the earnings. 38 cents versus 35 cents. You know, that's a nice beat, but I'm not so sure that's a crushing of something. And I also don't know that gives you the reason to say, well, it makes sense that this thing's up 50, 60% on the day. I mean, it was down 81% year to date coming in. So it's a name that, we all know certain parts of the market. This is an interesting place to be. I think they're in the right place because marketing is a big issue, obviously mobile, but it might be a little bit too much, too fast, I think, for this name today.
Yeah, and a short squeeze, like you always say, Pete, because, that's anytime you see a stock moving this much, 14 plus million shares versus 2 million normal activity. It's up 56%, but it was a $71 stock that got down to $10. And today on a 56% moonshot, it's back to 16. I mean, so
we're giving people the reality check, John. That's what they need, a reality check. Where the hell was this thing? Where is it now? It's a hell of a lot easier to go up 60% when you're down there in the, the 20 range versus the 160 range. I mean, you got to keep everything in perspective. And I don't know that everybody always understands. When you go down 60%, but then you go back up 60%, have you really returned to where you were?
No.
How many people don't realize that?
Yeah. The people that can't do math are the ones that do that, Pete. So congratulations to APPS, APPS, but not really getting a lot of love from us here today.
No.
But Pete, what about this one? For instance, RIVIAN. I've seen a lot of RIVIAN trucks lately. congratulations to Rivian. Shares are vastly outperforming the NASDAQ today. They're not up 56%, but they're moving to the upside. They reported a net loss, but it's a young company, and they still have an awful lot of cash and cash equivalents in the bank, Pete. Some of those companies you and I have talked about that are still losing money don't have the sort of cushion that Rivian has right now because people believe in the stock.
Yeah, they've got what looks like still, John, a great balance sheet. They also have a pretty decent sized short. That helps this squeeze action that I think we're seeing today. It's up 16%. It's not up as crazy as some of these other names we were talking about, but again, keeping things in perspective, this is a stock that was $180 at one point in time. It's down 73% year to date. There's a lot of reasons why people have been selling this name, but they are looking forward, and some of the projections, they're talking about reaching some of those projections. So can they deliver? They seem to think they are going to be able to deliver, despite the fact that they do have some issues with the supply chain, but they say that they're getting past that. So we're going to have to take their word for it on that. But 25,000 vehicles, John, I mean, honestly, let's think about that just for a minute. Look at GM, look at Ford, look at Tesla, and then look at this name, and you see what the deliveries look like. It's very interesting, and I think it's one that you want to pause on when you're considering this one, because it ain't one of the big boys just yet, but they got great trucks.
Right. $33 is where it peaked out at today, Pete. Like you say, the low is under 20. So congratulations to any Rivian believers. I'm still not in that camp, Pete. Right. So I am not jumping all over this one on a one-day rebound. They got to prove it to me over several days here. Yeah. All right. Unusual activity. Boy, we've been so lucky this week, Pete, to have all that activity in Coinbase. And, you know, we've talked about it, so I won't belabor it here today. But I will talk about IGT, International Game Tech, because this is the, I think, second time in 2 weeks, Pete, that I've mentioned this one, because today they're buying 10,000 December 24 calls. Now, a 24 call gives you the right to take stock from somebody at 24, with the stock trading this far below 24, 23.78. So this is the at the money call in this one. And you've got out till December, which is not the fast time decay. It's starting to accelerate. So please don't send me hate mail about, John, this is still time decay. Yes, it is, but it's not as fast as the November options that we're usually talking about here on the show. The fact that this appears to be really smart money, Pete, because they took a profit on the December 23 calls, 10,000 of those, and then they went up and rolled up a buck. That's why I'm in this trade, bullish IGT.
Opposite of everything you were just talking about, John, because you're talking about going out into the future. How about one that expires tomorrow? I'm going to hit you up with some of the semiconductors. We've had a lot of paper in a lot of different names. I'm not going to give you every one of those names. That's not something you're going to get for free from us, but I will give you AMD. How about that? Now, they had their sales were slowing, their inventories were building. Every negative thing that you could possibly think of, John, has been happening to this stock. It's been in a range of $54 all the way up to $164. That was quite a while ago at 164, by the way. But in any case, so here they were today. They were starting to make a little bit of a move to the upside with the stock trading just over $66 a share. They were buying 15,000 of tomorrow's expiring. That's November 11th. Tomorrow's expiring options, these calls at the 67 strike, 18 cents up to 65 cents. John, that's already moving. It's moving to the upside because people continue to buy a lot of these various semiconductors. This AMD, to quote you, bang. Yes, that is a bang. This son of a gun is a giddy up as well. It's moving to the upside. It's great to see these. I wouldn't be shocked if it continues this move tomorrow. We were just talking about that. We were talking about the macro minute, what's going on, and all the rest of that. But don't be a pig. This thing's already moving. It's giving you a lot of movement. You got to be smart, and it's going to expire at the end of trade tomorrow. So you're going to want to be very, very careful and smart and disciplined with this one.
Yep. Pete, it just hit $68, probably while you were talking about this. Like Pete says, folks, one of the things that we always express, we can't pull the trigger for you. We are not your financial advisors. We can tell you what we're doing and what 40 years, 41 years in my case, worth of experience tells us. And that is, let's take profits when we got them, when we've got a one-day trade like this. And if it wasn't working, Pete and I would cut losses just as quickly, because again, you can't let the winners run without making sure that you cut those losers. When you've got losers, cut them, move on to the next trade. All right, Pete, speaking of the next, how about the next thing in football? What do you got as far as sports that we can wind up the Rebels' edge for this week with a couple sports picks from Pete?
This is what people have to watch, John. College football. And here's why. It's going to be an epic weekend again. Last weekend, we talked about it going in. Georgia ended up just absolutely just wiping out Tennessee last week. So a lot of things changed in that upper bracket of the rankings. Then you had LSU taking out Alabama. By the way, all these guys who are after Nick Saban right now, and suddenly Nick's a bad coach. The guy's lost 2 games this year. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That does happen. 4 points, John. I mean, what in the hell are these people talking about here? And it was at the end of games that Nick lost these. They lost to Tennessee at Tennessee on a field goal. They lost it on a 2-point conversion with LSU. We've got TCU, a team that does deserve to be there, ranked number 4, playing at Texas. Now, this should be an interesting game. What if I told you number 18 Texas is favored by 7 in the game? I mean, that tells you a lot about college football and just how much parity there really can be. Now, Texas, they've got 3 losses, but they were all quality teams. Texas is a great football team. You can understand it. But I'll tell you what, we've talked about Duggan, the quarterback at TCU. He's a stud. Ewers at Texas. He's a stud. But the one thing Texas does have a little bit of an advantage, John, they've got some running backs that are absolutely unbelievable. This kid, Bijan Robinson, is pretty special. He's worth watching. Got 1,100 yards this year, 12 touchdowns. And then later on, John, you've got Washington going at Oregon. You brought up Oregon yesterday. You were 100% right. They're on the outside looking in. And you know what? If they continue to play like they've played, Washington's got 2 losses. Washington's a heck of a football team. Michael Penix, their quarterback, you know where he came from in the transfer portal? Indiana. All he's done is throw 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You also, on the Oregon side, you got Bo Nix. You know where he came from? The transfer portal. He came from Auburn. He's got 22 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I think we are really in for some unbelievable football. And I'll tell you what, John, the Pac-12 is back, baby. These guys are good. You've got Oregon, you've got UCLA, you've got USC, all of which, under the right circumstances, really could find themselves somewhere in that mix of the top 4 at the end of the season. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked, Pete, that you didn't talk about Tulsa and Memphis tonight. I'm also shocked you didn't talk about Georgia Southern and Louisiana tonight. But I will say that it's probably Matthew McConaughey's money, Pete, that he's putting on Texas, because I don't see a good reason that Texas is favored over TCU. I really don't. Now, we've seen that happen before, though. We saw when Notre Dame, Pete, was, what were they, number 5 in the country at the time? And at Ohio State, they were getting like 14 or 17 points or something. That was early on. So this one kind of confuses me. I think people aren't giving TCU the proper respect. So we'll see. Bettors, sometimes they're betting with their heart more than with what they should be betting with, which is facts and data and stats. But we'll see on that one. How about anything, Pete, on the pro side that you're focused on this weekend?
I got a really great one, John. So we've got the Tale of Two Cities, and I'm going back to Herschel Walker 2.0. Who is that? That's Russell Wilson. By the way, they paid him what, $250 million or more, guaranteed the whole thing. They sent him a first and a second this year, a first and a second next year. They also sent him a first-round draft pick quarterback and a first-round draft pick tight end and a defensive tackle that's been in the league for a while, all to get Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. Now, just let that sink in just for a minute. an older quarterback, you know, he's maybe seen his best days. He's a little bit short. He's this, he's that. Well, he's performed okay, John. Everybody's kind of on this guy. He's got 6 touchdowns. He's got 4 interceptions. I mean, what? How can you complain about that? It's unbelievable. So then you look at Seattle. Seattle's a 6-3 football team, John. They're going to be playing the Bucks in Munich. So that's going to be an interesting one. But when you look at Denver, they're 3-5. They got a couple games coming up against the Chiefs. They got the 49ers. They've got the Jets. It really makes you kind of wonder what will be the record of this team at some point in time. And here's the other thing. Sometimes as a team, you can blame your defense being pathetic, right? I mean, you could just say, you know what? It's not just the offense. It's the defense. Well, they're the number 2 defense in points scored against, John, at Denver. So, you know, you could put that one away. They're also the second ranked fewest yards of defense in terms of total yards as well. So this is a team that actually has a lot of good defense. They've done a good job of sacking quarterbacks. They've got 6 interceptions. So this is all on the offense. And who's that quarterback on that offense? I think it's Russell Wilson. This trade will continue to just be something to talk about, I think, for a long time, John, because Seattle's going up and Denver's going down. What do you think?
Oh, I think you laid it out perfectly, Pete. I've never seen one of these work out. I've never seen somebody give up this much, just like you say, like the Vikings did with Herschel Walker down to Dallas. It made Dallas's dynasty to have all those players from Minnesota, all those draft picks. And then Herschel Walker, how many Super Bowls did he win up in Minnesota, Pete?
0. It's like
None.
Zippo.
Yeah, and that's not to slam Herschel. It's not his fault. It's the GM of the teams. One GM just totally got fleeced, and the other was more than happy to take all of those draft picks, all of that potential in the future for one player. Yep. Same thing happened, Pete, with Ditka down in New Orleans. Oh. Think of how long it was before New Orleans was able to climb out of the hole that Ditka put them in just to get one player. It's never
running back who couldn't stop smoking pot.
Yeah.
How about that? You got a running back who's just addicted to the ganja, man. I mean, the guy couldn't get away from it. It ruined the franchise for about a decade, maybe?
A decade, yeah. And, you know, then it was only because they were able to steal a quarterback from San Diego that said, yeah, I'll give it a shot down there after, you know, the big hurricane hit and everything. I'd like to help rebuild New Orleans and rebuild that franchise. Mm-hmm. And boy, did he ever, Pete. Yeah. But yeah, I've never seen one of these trades work out. Never. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the camp with you that they overpaid and they gave up their future. And that'll hurt them for probably the next 4 to 10 years as far as that goes. So,
yeah. And John, you know what it comes down to? It's like a company buying somebody else and then changing everything about who they just bought to try to turn them into who they are. I mean, it's the same type of thing. They completely screw up. They put all this $50 billion to buy XYZ, and then they get the company and they say, you know what, we're going to turn you back into kind of what we are. And it's like, well, what was the point of the buy? I mean, you know, what the hell? You and I have seen that so many times in the market. It's scary.
Yep, very true. Well, folks, we thank you for joining us. I will be joining Charles Payne at 2:30, I think, today, Pete, Eastern time. So a little over an hour from now, I'll be on Fox Business with Charles Payne. Really looking forward to that. And we'll be talking a little bit about FTX and Bitcoin and what it means for crypto. The fact that the second biggest firm out there, FTX, didn't get that lifeline that they needed and instead is going like that. So make sure you tune in for that. Pete will be back with his take tomorrow. I'll be back with 3 at 3 later today. Boom. We'll see you soon, folks.